This is the unbelievable true story of Happee and Happee. And yes, that's their actual real name. A couple whose name generally sounded like happiness became the center of one of the most miserable marriages in Ghana's legal history. What started as a beautiful cross-cultural love story in 1951 transformed into a nightmare that would make even the most patient person question their sanity. Picture this. A Dutch marine engineer working in Ghana falls in love with a local woman. They marry and settle in Secondary Takrady, building what seemed like a perfect life together. For over 2 decades, they lived as husband and wife, but after 21 years of marriage, something snapped. What followed was a calculated campaign of psychological warfare that would push the boundaries of what any human being could endure. The wife didn't just argue with her husband. She launched a systematic campaign of public humiliation designed to destroy every aspect of his life. She would heap abuse on him in front of others, deliberately destroying his reputation and dignity wherever they went. But public embarrassment was just the beginning of her elaborate plan to make his life unbearable. She took her campaign directly to his workplace, creating scenes and demanding that he leave the country. Imagine trying to maintain your professional composure while your spouse shows up at your job threatening to cause chaos unless you abandon everything you've built. This was sabotage of the most personal kind. The harassment escalated to terrifying levels when she began making death threats. During one particularly chilling incident, she appeared at his flat and warned him that she would kill him if he didn't leave Ghana. The threat was so credible that police intervention was required to end the confrontation. But perhaps the most calculating aspect of her campaign was her attempt to destroy his career through false accusations. She wrote to his employer's head office in Paris, making completely fabricated claims that he had stolen company money. When the company investigated these serious allegations, they found them to be entirely baseless. Her character assassination campaign didn't stop with his professional life. Knowing that he was a member of the Freemason Lodge in Secondary, she wrote to them as well, making unfounded accusations about his character in a deliberate attempt to damage his standing in the community. Once again, the lodge authorities investigated and dismissed her complaints as completely groundless. She was systematically trying to isolate him from every support system he had. The violence then escalated to property destruction when she smashed the windscreen of his car. But nothing could have prepared anyone for what she did next, an incident so outrageous that it sounds like something from a psychological thriller. Her husband was aboard a flight to the Netherlands for what should have been a peaceful vacation. The aircraft engine started, passengers were settled in their seats, and the plane was preparing for takeoff when suddenly the impossible happened. The door reopened and in walked his wife, accompanied by 2 police officers. They arrested him right there in front of every passenger, removed him from the plane, and left him standing humiliated on the tarmac while his luggage continued its journey to Europe without him. The most disturbing aspect of this airport arrest wasn't just the public humiliation, it was that there was no valid arrest warrant. She had somehow manipulated the police through what the court would later describe as dubious means to carry out this elaborate public embarrassment. She had turned law enforcement into unwitting participants in her personal vendetta. When the case finally reached court, the wife's defense centered on allegations that her husband was having an affair with a woman called Hannah Say. However, despite all her elaborate schemes and attacks, she could not provide a single piece of evidence to support these adultery claims. Her entire campaign of destruction had been built on suspicions and jealousy. Justice Edusei, who presided over this case, delivered a judgment that reflected his personal exasperation with what he had witnessed. His words were particularly striking. He stated, "I must confess that no man, no matter how large his heart, can pull along with such a wife. No man, however conciliatory he may be, can, even with the patience of the biblical Job, tolerate a woman of the caliber of the respondent? The legal test for reasonable behavior in divorce cases asks whether the offending party has behaved in such a way that their spouse cannot reasonably be expected to continue living with them. In this case, the answer was overwhelmingly clear. But the court had even more grounds for granting the divorce. The wife had also deserted her husband for 2 years, which itself was sufficient grounds for dissolution under Ghana's marriage laws. The court ruled that the marriage had irretrievably broken down, with absolutely no hope of reconciliation. The divorce was granted on grounds of unreasonable behavior. The couple had a 19-year-old daughter who was attending St. Louis Secondary School, and the custody decision revealed the court's deep concern about the mother's psychological state and behavior patterns. Custody was awarded to the father, partly because he had previously funded Swiss boarding school education for the child, demonstrating his commitment to providing quality educational opportunities. However, the court's most telling decision was in the visitation arrangements, which spoke volumes about the assessment of the mother's mental state. The daughter was free to visit her mother whenever she wished, and the father was ordered to facilitate these visits. Crucially, however, the mother was prohibited from visiting the child at the father's residence. The court explicitly stated their fear that her presence would create more dramatic scenes, essentially acknowledging that she was too unstable to be trusted in her daughter's living environment. The financial settlement required delicate consideration, given the complex circumstance of the case. The wife initially demanded 8,000 cedis as a lump sum settlement, later reducing the demand to 4,000. The husband, on his part, offered 2,000 Ghana cedis, setting up a negotiation which would require the court to balance justice with compassion. The court faced a challenging balancing act in determining the financial arrangements. While the husband had suffered tremendous financial and emotional losses due to his wife's destructive conduct, she was now 50 years old with little prospect of remarriage after having served faithfully during the early years of their marriage. The judge had to weigh their past contributions against the damage she had caused. Taking all factors into consideration, including her age, her reduced prospects for future support, and the chaos she had created, the court awarded her 2,500 Ghana cedis. This compromise acknowledged both her past contribution to the marriage and the extensive damage her behavior had caused to the husband's life, career, and mental well-being. The case of Happee and Happee stands as one of Ghana's most dramatic examples of how love can transform into something destructive and genuinely dangerous. It demonstrates the court's willingness to protect individuals from extreme emotional and psychological abuse, even within the sacred bonds of marriage. The irony is obvious. A couple whose very surname was Happee had created one of the most unhappy and dysfunctional marriages in Ghana's legal history. Their name, which should have been a blessing, became a cruel reminder of how far their relationship had fallen from its romantic beginnings. The case also serves as a cautionary tale about how unchecked jealousy, suspicion, and vindictiveness can destroy not just a marriage but the lives of everyone involved. It shows how someone can transform from a loving partner into something resembling a stalker, using every tool at their disposal as weapons in their personal war. Perhaps the most important lesson from the Happee case is that love alone is not enough to sustain a marriage when one partner becomes determined to destroy the other. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to recognize when the relationship has become toxic beyond repair and have the courage to walk away, even if it means starting over completely. Well, next time someone wishes you a happy marriage, remember the Happees and make sure they spell it correctly, because sometimes the difference between happy and happy might be more significant than anyone could ever imagine. Follow Super Low GH Studios for more real stories, real cases, real people.